We are living through one of the biggest collisions of our time. On one side, you have the exponential, almost unbelievable speed of AI, and on the other, you have the slow, steady, very traditional worlds of education and early careers. In this explainer, we're going to break down what happens when these two forces slam into each other. What does it mean for students, for universities, and for pretty much anyone starting their career? All right, let's get into it.
So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the data shockwave that's hitting new graduates right now. Then we'll define the core problem, something we're calling the grade decoupling. We'll look at why universities are stuck, how professors are actually coping on the ground, what the very mixed signals from the job market really mean, and finally, we'll try to map out what the future of learning actually looks like.
Okay, so to really feel the urgency here, we have to start with the cold, hard numbers. This is the reality check for anyone about to enter the workforce today.
Let's start with this number, and it's a real gut punch, -46%. That is the drop in graduate roles at tech firms in the UK just between 2023 and 2024. And look, this isn't some tiny dip in the market. Projections are showing this is a structural collapse in what used to be a really reliable on-ramp for a career in tech.
And you can bet this is hitting students' morale hard. A recent survey found that 56% of the graduating class of 2025 feel pessimistic about finding a job. That optimism you'd expect from young graduates, it's being swamped by some very, very real anxiety.
So, what's driving this? Well, here's a big clue. A survey found that 2/3 of global companies, 66%, are actively planning to cut back on entry-level hiring specifically because of AI. They're looking at the tasks they used to give to new graduates and realizing, you know what, AI can do that now.
So the key takeaway here is that these numbers, they're not just random stats. They're all pointing in the same direction. They're signals of a deep structural change. You know that traditional bridge from getting your degree to landing your first job? Well, right now, it feels like AI is shaking its very foundations.
And this brings us right to the core idea of this whole explainer. It's a concept that really captures this massive shift we're seeing. We're calling it the Great Decoupling. So, what is the Great Decoupling? It's the growing chasm between the speed of technology and the speed of education. Seriously, think about it like this. AI is a bullet train, and it's not just fast, it's accelerating exponentially. Meanwhile, our education system, it's more like a steam engine. Still powerful, still important, but chugging along at a steady, linear pace. They're just not on the same track anymore.
And this right here, this is what we call the velocity gap. It puts that mismatch into stark relief. Major AI breakthroughs, they happen in a matter of months. But for a university to formally update its curriculum, that whole process, with all the committees and approvals, can take 5 to 9 years. It's a completely different timescale.
And here is the brutal real-world consequence of that gap. Researchers have estimated that by the time a student actually graduates with a 4-year technical degree, about half of what they learned is already out of date. It's like they're walking into the job market with an education that's partially become a history lesson.
And here's the crazy paradox in all of this. While all these new graduates are struggling to find jobs, a whopping 72% of employers say they can't find people with the skills they need. So it's not a shortage of people, it's a massive skills mismatch. This decoupling isn't just an academic problem, it's costing the US economy over $1 trillion. So, if this problem is so huge and so obvious, you have to ask, why are these incredible institutions, these centers of learning and innovation, so incredibly slow to change? Let's peel back the layers and look inside the system itself.
The thing is, this slowness isn't because people don't care. It's actually baked right into the structure of academia. Things like faculty governance, accreditation standards, the tenure system, these were all designed to create stability and rigor.
But in an age of ridiculously fast change, those same stabilizers can become anchors, creating a kind of institutional gridlock. And what makes this even worse is a serious brain drain. Let's be real. A university just cannot compete with the salary and resources that a company like Google or OpenAI can offer a top AI researcher. And this is leading to a hollowing out of faculty, where the very experts needed to teach the next generation are leaving academia for the private sector.
And while the universities are stuck in this gridlock, this is what's happening on the other side of that great decoupling. The pace of AI development isn't just fast, it's accelerating. I mean, the latest AI index report points out that complex benchmarks that were considered state-of-the-art just a year ago are now being blown past like it's nothing.
So if the institutions themselves are moving at a glacial pace, what does that mean for the individual professors? How are they dealing with this AI revolution in their actual classrooms day in and day out? This is what's happening down at the street level.
There's a really useful concept for understanding this. It's called street-level bureaucracy. It basically says that frontline workers, in this case faculty, end up becoming the real policymakers. They're the ones who have to take vague, top-down institutional rules and figure out how to apply them to messy, real-world situations with their students.
So what does that actually look like in practice? When the official university policy on AI use is either non-existent or confusing or just totally out of touch with reality, what are professors actually doing about it? This quote from a recent study on this exact topic really says it all. This professor, instead of going through some formal, bureaucratic process to report a student for using AI, just says, you know what, I'll handle it my own way. They're operating completely outside the official system. And one of the biggest reasons for that is this huge burden of proof. Professors feel like to formally accuse a student, they need an airtight case, like a prosecutor. As this one person put it, it feels like the standard of proof is even higher than in a court of law. And honestly, who has time for that? It's just not practical. So what they do instead is develop these coping mechanisms. They decide their job is to educate, not punish. So they create their own rules. They'll require early drafts, or maybe they'll just let a student resubmit an assignment. Or they'll just give up and design assignments they think are AI-proof, like in-class exams or oral presentations. They are essentially rewriting policy on the fly, classroom by classroom. Okay, now let's pivot and look at the job market. Because honestly, the signals coming from employers are just as complex and, frankly, just as contradictory. We're seeing a tale of two very, very different futures for entry-level work. I mean, just look at this. On one side, you have a major firm like PwC UK, and they're cutting hundreds of entry-level jobs. Why? They're explicitly saying it's because AI can now do that work. That is the AI as a job killer narrative we all hear about. But then you look at their direct competitor, McKinsey, and they're doing the exact opposite. They plan to increase junior hires because they need young talent with the hybrid skills to actually innovate with AI. So, which one is it? Is AI a replacement, or is it a co-pilot? It seems the answer is yes. This confusion is just pouring gasoline on the fire of the debate over the best way to get a job. You've got the traditional university degree. Takes years, costs an absolute fortune, focuses on theory, and we already know the curriculum is slow to update. And then you have the AI bootcamp. Takes a few months, costs a tiny fraction of a degree, and is laser-focused on practical, job-ready skills with a curriculum that changes constantly.
And employers are clearly voting with their job descriptions. The data shows that only about 5% of companies still have a hard requirement for a traditional college degree. We're seeing a massive shift to what's called skills-first hiring, where a verifiable certification or a really strong project portfolio can mean a lot more than a piece of paper. So, with all this chaos and disruption, where do we go from here? What's the path forward? And that brings us to our final section, what it's going to take to build the new learning stack, something that can finally bridge this great decoupling. Okay, so a huge push for change is actually coming from the top down. The big, powerful organizations that accredit universities, like the AACSB for business schools, are literally rewriting the rulebook. Their proposed 2026 standards are set to make digital agility a formal, measurable requirement. AI literacy is officially moving from the nice-to-have column to the must-have column.
And to meet these new standards, universities finally have a clear, practical roadmap. They have to audit how AI is being used across all their programs. They need to define what AI literacy actually means for their students, find ways to measure it, and, this is a big one, provide real, ongoing training for their faculty. And then they have to document all of it to keep their accreditation.
This external pressure is forcing a much bigger internal shift in how education is even structured. We're seeing a move away from the old rigid idea of an academic major and toward much more flexible, modular learning paths. This would let students stack different skills together, say combining a course in ethics with a certificate in data science to create a personalized skill set that can actually adapt to what the market needs.
So the future here probably isn't a choice between one or the other. It's almost certainly a hybrid approach. It's about combining the deep theoretical foundation you get from a university with the practical, always current skills you can get from a boot camp. The goal is no longer to get an education and be done. The goal is to build a foundation for continuous, lifelong learning, to become what economists call truly adaptive human capital.
And that really leaves us with a final provocative question. And it's not just for universities or for students, it's for all of us. In this new era of exponential change, we all have to look at how we learn and how we think about our skills and ask a very honest question. Is it built to last, or was it built for the world of last year?